The extraction genre has come a long way since Escape from Tarkov was released in 2017. Of course, we could turn the dial a little bit more and go back to The Division's release in 2016 to experience the first bit of real extraction mechanics in the form of the Dark Zone. But even then, the extraction genre was always just a modification of battle royale games, with the added obstacle of having some PvE in the game and the ability to take loot with you after the game and then bring it back into the game with you. Over time, we experienced new variations of the battle royale style and eventually new variations on the extraction style game. One thing seemed to be consistent with these games though, and that was their revolution around guns. That is until Dark and Darker came out onto the scene with the first fantasy take on the extraction genre. Dark and Darker, although it was taken down for a bit and had a little controversy around its launch, shook up the extraction genre. Shortly after its release, other games emerged like Dungeonborn that played along the same style. This genre is clearly here to stay and has an avid audience of people willing to sink hundreds of hours into the game. BetaDwarf, the company that brought us Forced Showdown, and Minion Monsters, has decided to dip their foot into the genre and is announcing their new game, Vaultbreakers, to challenge the likes of Dark and Darker and Escape from Tarkov. Vaultbreakers, previously called Project Fae, is a top-down PvPvE action RPG that takes the gameplay of top-down MOBAs and fast-paced action RPGs and mashes it into the extraction style loop of games like Tarkov or Dark and Darker. Band together with friends or go in solo to take down challenging enemies, gather resources, and face off against other players to extract with precious loot. Before we dive in further, let's talk about today's sponsor, me. BetaDwarf is running the playtest from January 31st at 7 a.m. to Friday, February 7th at 3 p.m. That time is in CST, so convert it accordingly. About every month, they run playtests, but that is the most recent one that's coming up. BetaDwarf was kind enough to give me a handful of keys to hand out as well. I'll be streaming January 31st from 8 p.m. CST to about midnight, and I'll be giving away 5 keys every hour from 9 p.m. to midnight. Come by and get your free key, which gives you access to the current playtest and any other playtests up to the point of full release. The key does not give you the full game on release. And with that, let's jump right back in. Vaultbreaker gives you a variety of different heroes to choose from. During the playtest I was a part of, I was able to choose from 5 different heroes. Thora is a melee bruiser, Bjornir is a big boy tank, Lumiri is a plant summoning druid, Nemera is an archer, and Sparkwing is a magic slinging dragon demon thing. During the 4-hour playtest, I spent most of my time with Thora because bruisers are my comfort zone, but I had a chance to play with each hero. Thora excels at single target damage, and she is very thick, but she lacks mobility. Bjornir is a melee-centered tank that is beefy with some crowd control options, but be aware that he doesn't deal much damage, so you're better off using him in a duo. And honestly, he's a little slow like Thora as well. Lumiri is a ranged caster that excels at area control and being able to shield herself, but she lacks at crowd control abilities to control targets. Nemera is a ranged physical hero that excels at single target damage, but is very weak to area damage, crowd control, and she is a little bit squishy. Lastly, Sparkwing is a ranged caster that excels at area damage and is very mobile, but he is very weak to crowd control. Jumping into the game, movement is done with the WASD key and your mouse. Q, R, right click, and spacebar trigger your abilities, and your left click is your basic attack. The F key will let you access things, and you can equip 3 different consumables that are triggered with the 1, 2, and 3 key. I will access your inventory, J will access your journal, and C will bring up a wheel for you to emote. Do note that in the game, loot is shared, so if you are playing in a duo, be aware that you are taking loot from your friend. And also note that if you are playing in a duo, you can revive your ally if they go down. Now, after looking around your base, which won't take you too long since most of it is not used right now, you will have the chance to launch the mission. You can choose between a variety of different biomes, but for the playtest we had 2 missions we could select, Wolfswood and Artifact Refinery. The other regions of Blood Swamp, Titan Factory, and Emberwing were locked during the playtest. Wolfswood is the first region you visit, and it is mostly woods with some rock areas in the south, a werewolf area in the middle, along with some spiders and a variety of other smaller regions that go along with the wooded areas. Artifact Refinery is a desert-like biome that is almost like a barren wasteland with little goblin creatures everywhere. I only had a little chance to play this region during the playtest, but it was nice. I definitely prefer Wolfswood, but I didn't hate Artifact Refinery. It's probably a comfort at this point. Once you land in the game, your mission is to kill enemies for the loot they drop, harvest plants and rocks, open chests for more loot, do tasks for missions, and ultimately open new areas of the map to take on bigger challenges and bosses. The ultimate goal, of course, is to climb the ladder and access the different regions, which are locked behind a currency that you can obtain from what I've seen by completing more missions. One thing you'll notice as you take on enemies in the game is that attacks are very punishing and they hurt a lot, but they're very obvious, and as you play more, you'll notice that pretty much every attack in the game can be avoided. BetaDwarf is rewarding the player for playing the game and learning how each mob or character moves and attacks. So pretty much everything can be dodged or avoided. There are a variety of different enemies you will come in contact while you're on a mission. The most common one is what I just call trash mobs. These mobs are all over the place. They do considerable less damage than the other mob types, and they die fairly quickly. If you're first starting out, these will be your primary source of getting new gear and getting a little bit stronger before you take on the other ones. They drop crafting materials and occasionally pieces of gear. The higher level mobs are a little bit tougher and they reward about the same. Boss mobs are the pinnacle of mobs, and as it currently stands, I was not able to defeat a lot of them during the playtest. I ran across a few of them during my play and I was able to kill I think 1 or 2 of them, but I did run across a werewolf boss and I wasn't even able to damage it with my weapons. The last type of enemy that you will come across is called a changeling. This enemy is a shapeshifter and it takes the form of different heroes that you can control. This faction of enemies will attack, avoid, or align with you based on how you play it. If the changeling is AI controlled, just know that they will pretty much always attack you. If it's another player, which they are still categorizing as a changeling, you can choose to fight them or ally with them. I had a fair number of interactions with changelings, and they hit really hard if they are AI controlled. I definitely recommend being cautious when you attack them. And the few encounters I had with other players was actually really good. There were only a few people that actually went in and attacked me. Most people were willing to team up and take down enemies together and then go our separate way. Once you decide you are done by either running out of life, being forced to leave by the closing smoke, or having a full bag of loot, you will want to make your way to an extraction point highlighted on your map. There are 2 kinds of extraction points: solo extractions and group extractions. A solo extraction is channeled by one player and it removes them, and them alone. A group extraction begins a portal and you must defend the point while creatures spawn in and try to kill you. If you end up surviving until the end of the map and the circle is closing in on you, in the very middle of the map will be the final extraction point, and you must survive until the end to extract from this final point. So be aware of that. Once you have extracted, any missions that you completed will be checked off, and you will have all of the gear and items still in your inventory. If you are not successful during your mission and you die, upon death, you drop half of your crafting materials and all of the equipment in your inventory. Missions you completed, like killing a certain mob, will still be completed, so at least you have that. But if you're trying to harvest a certain resource, you will drop half of those. The average game of Vaultbreakers will vary in length, but the circle will fully close in 16 minutes, and the first portals to extract open after 10 minutes. So you can expect to invest about 10 to 16 minutes for the average game. After you safely extract from the map, You come back to the base with your equipment and materials. As soon as you're back, you'll want to speak to the quest givers to move the missions along, deposit materials into your crate, upgrade your artifact if possible, choose any new perks that you've unlocked, buy new equipment if you died or if you're just changing equipment, do that, sell anything extra to the vendor, buy from the vendor, craft anything you can, and then launch back into another mission. The campaign progresses in a really linear manner, where you start with one person and have access to more quest givers as you complete more and more of the campaign missions. In addition to getting new quest givers, you will also access new vendors, more crafting recipes, and better gear. Be sure to upgrade your artifact while you're back at the base, equip new gear you obtained, and don't forget to pick up your harvesting equipment if you died, or just make sure you don't deposit that in the bank. Select your new mission and launch. At the current place of development, it seems like the end game is to build up your resources and storage of amazing gear, to launch into missions, to gather more resources, and ultimately to take out some of the bosses in these maps for even better gear. During the playtest, I didn't see leaderboards or any kind of competitive game modes, but I know from speaking with the developer and the documentation that they've sent out, we will be able to do that either further into development or at least by the time of full release. At full release, our end game should be to climb leaderboards and tackle competitive challenges. In addition to that, we will have access to all of the various different biomes and areas to launch into, and each of those regions will have their own bosses as well. After spending 4 hours in the game, I left wanting more. I'm really looking forward to Vaultbreakers and seeing what BetaDwarf has in store for this amazing looking game. Their current testing period is about every month. They will open up the game for a few days, and if you're watching this within a few days of the video coming out, there should be a variety of different people that are giving away keys in addition to the company themselves giving away keys. These keys will give you full access to the game for the remainder of the testing period. The key does not give you the game upon launch, but you can at least jump in on the development stage and every month or so be able to jump in and play the game. Expect your character to be wiped after each playtest, but you can at least jump in, have some fun, and get to experience this phenomenal new take on the extraction genre. If you guys enjoyed the video, I would greatly appreciate if you liked and subscribed, and let me know down below in the comments if you're looking forward to jumping in as well.